Welcome back to another episode of Early Childhood Chats, the podcast. Andy Roszak with you as always. And today, joined by Tanika Steele, coming to us from the great state of New York. Tanika is a public speaker, a life coach, an educational consultant. She has a bachelor's in secondary education, English, and a master's in public administration. Hey, I got one of those. There's not too many of us running around out there. So excited to talk to another MPA today, coming to us with almost 30 years of experience working with at-risk children, and really, really excited to dive into some of these important issues. We're going to be talking about all things inclusion and diversity and making sure that we're meeting the needs of the children that we serve and, of course, our community and our parents as well. So, Tanika, thank you so much for being here today. Can you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background?
Thank you, Andy, for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. I actually started off, like, as you said, I was an English teacher, secondary ed English first. And then I just decided as I became a mom and I had my own kids that early childhood was really where I wanted to put my focus. And then started my career with Head Start. And I started off as a teacher in the classroom with them and then as a family educator. And then I moved on to being a childcare director for one of their programs, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years. So it's become a passion of mine, and I love it. And it went from me being there for 20 years to then going over to the consultant space, and then being able to really share all of the great lessons that I've learned in the Head Start program as a director and in all the other positions that I held, and being able to share that with people who are currently doing the job now. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, we're really excited to have you here on the podcast today. And of course, you'll be down in the U.S. Virgin Islands in October. Really excited about that too at the Region 2 Head Start Association Conference. And you'll be actually talking on two different topics: leading with diversity and equity within our Head Start programs, and then also empowering early childhood leadership, maximizing impact with relationship based competencies. So, for all those coming down to the Virgin Islands, we're excited and think those sessions will be fantastic. I did want to kind of dive into the whole DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. And I have heard, from many programs that are a little bit uncertain about kind of what this looks like and how do I do this in the appropriate way. With so many regulations, so many requirements that we have to fulfill every day, we want to make sure we're incorporating diversity and inclusion in everything that we do. But I do know, I've heard from many programs that just say, I don't really know how to do this. And I'm guessing you probably get that question a lot, especially with your consulting services that you offer. So do you want to maybe talk about kind of basic DEI implementation, what this is, why it's important, and some simple steps that we could use to get this thing going in our programs?
Oh, absolutely. I know that all of us who are working in the Head Start space, early childhood space, really all over. Yeah, I know a big goal for Head Start is creating that multicultural environment. And we want to be inclusive of all the different families that we have coming in. So just like how we're making sure that we're inclusive of all the different families that are coming in and having a respect for, all of their culture, their religion, everything that comes in place with that, we want to do the same thing with our staff. And I think that sometimes we kind of like are just looking into filling positions and making sure that they have the right academic requirements. But we want to make sure too that we're all encompassing when it comes to having people in our programs that look like the children and the families that we're servicing. And that's kind of hard to do sometimes. So I know what I usually suggest for programs is you want to have inclusive recruitment where you widen your job posting platforms to include diverse job boards and community organizations. You want to have bias training for your hiring team. That's a huge thing. Sometimes people just are overlooking things because they simply just they don't know, you know. And then employer referral programs, we want to have our employees bringing in bringing in diverse people, and having diverse interview panels. And we want to have partnerships with organizations that promote that. And then also professional development, which is what everyone's doing when they're coming down for these conferences. Okay. We want to create an inclusive culture, and being able to do that means just simply sitting and getting the information. So you know how you can go back and you can change just tiny things at a time in your program.
I absolutely love it. And, one of the things that I'm sure you hear, I certainly hear it, is the workforce issues right now are so monumental that I'm just so lucky to get anybody to apply for a job, let alone apply, then I actually have to get them onboarded and have them start, because so many programs will have 10 people sign up for an interview and only one or two show up, as you know. So kind of with this complex background, this landscape that we have now as far as hiring people, recruiting people, I'd like the idea of maybe we need to start changing up where we're recruiting people from, because certainly the tried and true methods that we've seen the last decade, they're kind of out the window in some places at this point, aren't they?
Yes. And I feel like a huge part of making a little bit of that change is creating a work environment that people love. Because when you have somebody that's at a job and they love the team that they're working with, the environment that they're working in, it's just like with anything else that's really good that people want a piece of. You're going to tell your friends, you're going to tell different people who are graduating from school with you. You want to tell, and like they're like, wow, you really love it there? Then that's where I want to be. That's where I want to start my career. So also just creating that environment, that amazing work environment is a huge part of bringing in staff and retaining staff, not just having them come in, but also retaining them.
And you mentioned early on kind of about the need to make sure our workforce reflects the community that we serve. And I know this isn't unique to early childhood. I mean, police departments and many organizations are struggling with this and recognizing that, yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense, right? If we think about role models in our community and really being in tune and in step with, who we're serving and why we're serving them. Can you talk about some of the benefits that would have from a child to have, people in the classrooms that are reflective of the folks in the community?
I think the sense of them being comfortable and being open to learning with people that look like them or have a respect for their culture, or who understand the different things that they might be going through based on, where they come from, and, different types of things that they do at home that they might not necessarily do at school. I feel like when you bring all of that in, it just makes the opportunity for learning so much greater. And in reality, I know I've been doing this for a very long time. Children that come in and feel like they're welcome, that they're appreciated, that they're respected, and they're like, oh, they're 5 years old, but yes, respected. They are just so much more open to receiving whatever that classroom team has to offer.
And we used to see Head Start as kind of a ladder. I would hear story after story, and this is, going back decades, but parents that would be involved in Head Start, then the next thing you know, hey, the mom's coming in as a teacher in our program, or the dad's doing this, or the family's doing that, and kind of almost like a ladder that people would go down, and it, gosh, it inspired so many to become part of our early childhood community. Have you seen that kind of play out a little bit as well with thinking about, hey, let's bring some of the parents in, let's show them the value, let's make sure that they're a part of this program?
Not only does it helps families become invested in your program. So first, sometimes they start out as volunteers. Next thing you know, they're actually working for the Head Start program because they see the value and the quality that it brings to their community, and they see what it brings to their family as well. So I've definitely in my years with Head Start have seen parents go from just coming in and kind of like looking from the outside to see what's being offered, and then kind of taking that step next to volunteer in the classroom in the center. And then sometimes once their child is left, then they come in and either they're working as staff or they're still continuing to volunteer because they see what a great benefit it is, and um, how welcoming they are, how welcoming the program has been to them. So absolutely.
So you're putting on a 90-minute session in Puerto Rico, or I'm sorry, in the Virgin Islands. I have Puerto Rico on my mind today. I'm going there in just a week or so to work on our 2025 conference, if you can believe that. But we'll be in the Virgin Islands. You're putting on a 90-minute session. What are some things that folks are going to learn who attend that session with you?
For when we talk about leadership and we talk about the difference between managing and being a leader in your Head Start program and making everybody feel included, they're going to learn different ways, different techniques to be able to include their staff. They're going to learn different ways about hiring and kind of restructuring what some of those hiring processes are, how to include their team in the decision-making process, and also how to approach different experiences that they might encounter with staff. One of the things I like to try to bring up is I had a staff person who um, I was working with, and the first thing that she said to me that made me change and restructure the way that I kind of worked with the staff and made them feel more included was she said, "I don't feel like the rest of the staff actually see me." And when she said that, I was just like, oh, well, what does she mean by that? And really what it was that they didn't understand her culture. They didn't understand how she reacted to different things or how she would initiate certain things. And that I had to realize was my job to make everybody else that worked with her more familiar with that. And once we were able to do that and, be more inclusive of all the things that she had a great respect for, that we actually started to have a great respect for too, because of how much we loved working with her. It just was a game changer. It was a game changer in the classroom with the children, and it was a game changer with how they worked together as a team. So those are some of the things that I want to bring in and share. And hopefully those will be tips and ideas that they'll be able to incorporate into their own programs to make a big difference.
I have to think if you implement a program like this and you do it the right way, not only is it going to help with the recruitment aspect and getting staff in, but I would think much like what you just talked about, that value of belonging, that appreciation, that sense of, hey, people are seeing me and caring about me. I would think that that would really help with the retention part of the program as well.
Oh, absolutely, because once they feel like they found their place, their village, their team that they work with to create, these wonderful educational moments in these children's lives and families too, because your parent is your first teacher, so we're giving all that guidance. And I feel like people don't realize when you have a team that works cohesively together, and they have that, everything just kind of like works seamlessly together, it manifests in everything that they do day to day within the classroom, outside the classroom, with the family advocates that work closely with the families. And it's a huge game changer.
I'm talking with Tanika Steele. She travels the country working with programs. She does a lot of advice, a lot of consulting, a lot of life coaching, which I'm interested to delve into a bit. But I'm just kind of curious in your interactions with some of the clients that you've worked with, what are some of the big challenges that you see facing the programs today?
We touched upon one of them, which is retention. You know, that's a huge one because of course we do know that funding is an issue. We're not, childcare workers are not getting paid what we feel like they should be getting paid for what they do. So retention is a huge one. I also feel like parents and oh, hold on one second. I just lost my train of thought. I was like, what was I gonna say? Oh my gosh.
We can always
Um,
edit it, no big deal.
I was gonna say, Gabby, I'm like, I lost my campus. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, what? I'm like thinking of it. I'm like, retention was one. Funding and resources is another one. And having, parental and community involvement is another huge one. We definitely we want our parents to come in, we want them to participate, we want our community to come in and participate. But there are definitely some huge challenges there. And then the next one is mental health and well-being. We're seeing a lot of issues with mental health and well-being, not just with our parents, but also with our staff. And having ways to be able to step in and teach them better ways to, assist with their mental health. And then just, that's a huge one. Um, the amount that we give to our students every day, and I always tell people this, we have to pour back into our staff the way that our staff pour into our children because they're being depleted every day, so that's definitely a huge concern too.
A lot of challenges out there right now, and it's definitely a changed environment. I hate to keep harping on COVID, but I mean, COVID was a dramatic shift, it seems like, for the country and I don't know, maybe the world, but our workplace has certainly changed post COVID. And I know that programs are struggling with these challenges more so than ever. But I do definitely appreciate the conversation about the parity and the pay scale and the recognition and the education levels. Do you think we'll ever see a time when we finally recognize the value of early childhood education and start putting our teachers and our staff on parity with the folks that are working with the older kids that are out there?
We've been having this conversation for pretty much, I would say almost my entire career about, preschool staff, not being held on the same level as what you see in the public schools. But I feel like we create the foundation for those children that move forward. And I don't think they look at it like that. I have seen since COVID hit, when we were kind of like all, locked away for that couple of years, a lot of our children lost that socialization piece. So we got a lot of our 3 to 5 year olds that came in and we saw the difference. As soon as they came in, it was like, wow, them not having that interaction with their peers. Some of the children that are only children are like they're the first kid in their family. So they've been by themselves for that, the first 3 years. It was a huge difference. And we've had to adjust just on that alone, on how we address them, how we bring things in with them, how we kind of like show them, they're relearning very late how to be able to do all the things that we would normally teach them when they're coming into our programs, a little bit earlier on, early Head Start and Head Start programs. So that part's a little scary.
As the parent of a 3-year-old who was born during the pandemic, I can attest to that and say we were very, very conscious about creating safe opportunities to interact with other children because we recognize like you can't, but we heard so often, you can't learn from a screen time is bad, yada, yada, yada. But yet so many places during the pandemic, that was the only choice, put them in front of a screen. And that, I guess, we're looking at some of the impacts for that, and hopefully we can correct that in the long term. But you're right. I mean, the behavior challenges, the even the potty training has become an issue as you see more 3, 4, and 5-year-olds that aren't even potty trained at this point, which I don't know. I don't remember seeing that before the pandemic. I mean, you occasionally saw it here and there, but it definitely wasn't as widespread as we're seeing now. So I'm hoping that we can get back to some sense of normalcy. The good thing is children are pretty resilient, but I think we'd be silly to think that we can magically catch up for 2 or 3 years in just a month or two, right? I mean, it's a long term commitment and it's purposeful, I believe, and those engagements I think are going to be important as we kind of look at that COVID generation. I don't know, millennials, COVIDials, I don't know what they'll call them, but there might be some long term change that we have to keep in mind. I know you're going to be talking about relationship based competencies. You're going to do a whole 90-minute session on that. I don't know much about it. Maybe I do, but I don't really know too much when you say relationship based competencies. Like, what does that mean? What can folks expect to learn from the session? And tell us a little bit about relationship based competencies, what that looks like, and why those are important to implement as well.
So relationship-based competencies, or I like to call them RBCs, they're based on research and recommended practice across many fields, working with families from pregnancy through early childhood years. And these fields include like early care and education, early intervention, infant mental health, child welfare, maternal and child health, pediatrics, social work and psychology, and they align with our Head Start performance standards and what we're supposed to have for our programs. And what I love about them is that they have a supervisory set, and then they have some for our family advocates and our family educators, and then they have some for the teaching staff. And those relationship-based competencies, we can use those for everything to improve our data, to improve our professional development for staff, to find different ways to work with our parents in the community. It's like a guideline. It's really like a map that you can use to just make sure that you're constantly improving your program. And what I love about them is that not only can you use them for yourself, on a personal level to make sure that, you're kind of moving forward and being the best teacher or the best family advocate, or the best director, but you can also use it to kind of oversee your staff to kind of give them a guideline to see where they are too. And it's just like, it's just this free, amazing, um, just this free, amazing thing that you can find on eClick that just kind of like puts everything in place for you to be able to have, the best program and keep making your program better. So I know a lot of people, I have talked to people and they're like, I don't know what that is, and they haven't used it. So the session that I'm having while we're in St. Thomas is just really to show people what they are, to kind of go over what each one is and how they can use it to improve their program as well as their own personal performance.
Wow, that sounds great. Well, we'd certainly always love increasing quality and all those kind of great things. So, would you say that this would be something that would be kind of alongside like a class or something like that? Or how does that kind of relate to Itter's, Ecker's class and some of these other methods that are out there, models that are out there?
Class I love, we've been seeing it, like it's not more of a scoring system. So you're not gonna kind of go in and observe the classroom and then get a score based on what your performance is, but it's more of like a guideline that shows you what you should be doing for your program, and it kind of gives you like a breakdown in accordance with what the performance standards thought would be. And then you would just take that and you would use that to either see what you're not doing or see what you are doing and how you can improve that. And it kind of just gets it broken down in a summary for each one. So you can kind of see where you are, which is nice.
Wow, I love it. It sounds like it might even lend itself to some self-assessment.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Well, fantastic. Well, in addition to all the professional work that you're doing and the consulting and the leadership and the coaching, I know you do a lot of volunteer work, and I'm pretty sure you were featured in O Magazine with some of the volunteer work that you do, aren't you?
Yes, I was. That was actually a surprise. I didn't know that I was going to get that. Someone had entered me into it. Was called the Beauty of Giving Back. And I was picked with three other women from across the country for their work in their community. And it was just amazing. I was working with a group called Every Child Matters. And we worked with homeless families, doing things for them for the holidays, about 700 families a year. And we would do Christmas gifts for them. They would do a bunch of different holiday parties for them. And then also, because I live on Long Island, we had a lot of families that had never been to Fire Island or even actually enjoyed a day at the beach. So we would take 700 children over to Fire Island for the day. And they would have a beach day. They got, free bathing suits, towels. They'd have lunch there. We would do like a pirates treasure cove where they go on this pirate hunt for the day. And it was just an amazing time with a ton of kids that were just enjoying the beach and having a great day. So it was something that I probably did for about 10 years. And it's a great group, and they still continue to do stuff in the community now, which is awesome.
Wow, that does sound awesome. Well, thank you for all your volunteer hours doing that. That sounds like it was a lot of fun and probably rewarding. But boy, 700 kids, that's a lot of kids to manage.
So imagine that, and then volunteers, getting volunteer lifeguards and volunteers to kind of like put everything together as far as the registration and making sure that everybody got there safe and everybody got home safe. But it's always been a great day.
Well, maybe Oprah will come and give you a car or something for all your work.
Right?
That would be great. You get a car and you get a car.
That would be awesome.
Oh yeah, I think you deserve it. I mean, anybody that can handle 700 kids and organize and work with that. That's a monumental lift right there. My goodness.
All that training from Head Start prepared me for prepared me for all those little guys. And you know what? It's always gone off without a hitch. We've always had really great kids. And it's just an awesome event.
I always like to have a little discussion for our future generation, our future workforce, folks that are in school now or thinking about going to school. And it's unique today because, again, a master of public administration. I've got one. You've got one. There's not too many of us running around. But I'm curious, how have you used the MPA to foster the work that you're doing now? And what is kind of the tie-in between MPA and Head Start and all the consulting that you're doing?
Um, when I actually started to my master's program, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. It really just opened my eyes to not just being a manager at a program, but actually seeing the ins and outs of how a not-for-profit runs. And we're all on different levels in the agency, so you kind of like it's kind of hard to kind of see where upper management is and the difficulties that they have to go to just to make the everyday happen for us in the centers. So my baby is strategic planning. I love strategic planning. Like that's like, and I'm proud. People like, what you love? I love it. I love strategic planning. So be having that as something that's like my passion, I try to incorporate that into every single thing that I do. So when I work with agencies, when I work with individuals, strategic planning is like the core of making them be able to see that you have to have a business plan and it has to make sense, not just for an agency, not just for a for-profit business, but also for yourself. Like, where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? What's your strategic plan look like? Because you want to be improving every day. So I literally use my MBA every day. I use it in the programming that I'm creating. I use it in the coaching that I'm doing. I do a lot of workforce readiness and job readiness training with individuals. And everything that I gained from, yeah, I paid a lot of money for that degree, but it was worth it because I use every single penny of that to be able to make life-changing trainings for people, as well as being able to do the same thing with coaching. So I say if that's something that somebody wants to go for it.
What I have found is kind of the nexus. So, Master of Public Administration obviously deals a lot with the public infrastructure, right? Government and how that works and how we interact with government as citizens, as businesses, as nonprofits. And I've quite honestly found it very insightful. I've worked, for the government for many years and then for the nonprofit sector and everything else, but kind of having that behind the scenes knowledge of governmental decision making and requirements and what that looks like. And I mean, it's messy at times, right? But kind of having a
Absolutely.
better appreciation for the constraints that a government operates under and kind of how they function and what they can and can't do. I think has been actually pretty helpful to have that knowledge because so many of our early childhood programs are functioning in some capacity on either a grant or an award or some type of subsidized government funding. So I want to switch gears a little bit. You've kind of hinted around here at the edges, but I want to kind of just address it head on. I mean, Tanika is out there every single day helping our programs. You've heard about some of the expertise that she has. If folks want to get a hold of you, if folks want to hire you, if folks want to work with you, what are some of the offerings that you provide and what are some of your more popular services that you provide to the clients that you serve?
So we offer, like I said, strategic planning will come in and we'll revamp your whole strategic plan process. We do team building, we do professional development. I'm huge on, of course, like I said, I was a I was an English teacher, so I'm huge on literacy workshops, how to incorporate it into our early childhood classrooms, how to be able to incorporate our parents into the process of bringing that, into their home and, having that as a core piece of, starting your educational journey. And literally Steele Educational Consulting can create any type of a training program or professional development program that you'd like to see. We do cater to programs and try to create something that works best for their program because every program doesn't always need the same thing, so it depends on, what they need for, for their community. And I'd also do public speaking as well. So we'll come in and we do, we'll come in and we'll be able to talk about just my journey as a Head Start person. And also, my personal journey before I even came to Head Start as a single mom and how I got from being there to where I am now. So those are all great things to be able to share with people as a motivational piece.
Fantastic. And I'm kind of wondering, what legacy do you hope to leave behind? Thinking about the work that you do, the education piece, the volunteer work that you do, and obviously your background and your history. What do you think about when people say Tanika's legacy is going to be A, B, or C? What does that look like for you?
Oh my goodness, my
A
legacy.
big question here.
I will say that one of the things I used to tell my team when I worked in a program was I always want to treat people's children the way that I would want my children to be treated. And I have 6 children. I have 6 children and I have 4 grandchildren. So yeah, yes. So I'm like, oh, I always want to treat people's children the way that I would want to see my children treated in an educational setting. And I think sometimes it's hard for staff to be able to imagine what that looks like. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So my legacy is that when you're in a leadership role and you're working with the team, that you make sure that you're able to make sure that your staff are always thinking about how they would want their children to be treated in an educational setting, and they want to convey that to the families and to the children. So I kind of feel like that's really how Steele Educational Consulting came into fruition, is because I wanted to make that a reality across the board in early childhood. So
Well, it's a lofty goal, and I hope you achieve your mission here. It sounds like you're on the right path to making that happen. So very good. If folks want to get a hold of you, if folks want to learn more, if folks would like to hire you, what's the best way to find out, what you're doing and what you can offer?
we are on all social media. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, and we also have our website, which is steeledconsult.com. So you can find us on there. You can leave us a message through there and be able to contact us. Also, our phone number's on there. So if you ever want to just give us a ring and talk to us, some program needs that you have, you can do that as well. And I hope that, I'm super excited about coming out to St. Thomas and being able to be in the same space with all these amazing educators. Um, and we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, and certainly excited to see you in person in the beautiful Virgin Islands in October. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody at home listening to the podcast. If you like our podcast, please drop us a note. Let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love for you to give us a review. 5 stars only, though, right?